Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, May 13th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. That's AJ Schullo, my man on Thursdays. What's up, AJ? How's it going, man?
What's up, Adam? Excited to be talking about some fight announcements with you. The card a little bit. No Bellator, no PFL this week, but the show goes on.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of PFL, Marcel literally just sent me a DM that has the next card. I'll show it to you. He just sent me the DM. I actually asked him to come on today and join us, but he's doing something, entertaining a guest or something. Here's the card I'm looking at for the first time with you. Pettis versus Martinez. I think he lost the first card, I believe, as well. So I mean, both guys lost. Jenkins, Dizzy. Wow, Jenkins actually won his fight. Dizzy lost to Wade. So it's a winner-loser fight. You got Brendan Lofton, Tyler Diamond. That's a great fight. I know you like that fight, AJ. You're a big Tyler Diamond guy. That's interesting. And then you have, man, they put Clay Collard in the prelims. Really? Wow. I'm surprised by that. I can't believe that, actually. Aren't you surprised by that? That's a little surprising, right? Like, he had such a great performance against Luderback. Yeah. Jeez, man, that's crazy. Schulte, Donitsov, Palmer, Stojanovic, held Aubin Mercier. That's a good fight. That's a good one. I like that one. Aliev, Radshadbov, and then Kaibuliev versus Moises. That's a good fight too. I like that. That's a violence fight. That I would say under in that fight, guys. That someone's getting knocked out, I think. Although I said about the guy's last fight, he didn't finish the guy, so you never know. Wade and Ospinov. So, any thoughts on this card? Marcel literally just sent it to me. Any thoughts?
Dude, I love this card. This card's great. Prelims are awesome. It reminds me of that Bellator card last week. I got some heat. Yeah, I got some heat for saying it was better than the UFC, but
you did say that. AJ, you called that shit, man. Yeah, you gotta speak up. You called that, man.
Well, because it's, we're so custom. Obviously, the UFC is the best of the best, but this is a great card, man. I mean, I think Collard probably deserves to be on the main card after that last performance, but you just got Schulte's on there. You brought up Held and Mercier, Moises and Aliev, dude. This is a stacked card. I'm honestly, I thought the PFL cards have been good so far this year, but this is the best card, I think, by far.
I agree.
So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I agree, man. So anyways, Marcel just sent that to me, and we'll close that. You wanted to talk about Bellator from last week. You had some plays, right? What was your how did your night go? You had Archuleta or you had the under at the Rumble fight, I think, and Archuleta. There was one other play you had, AJ. I can't remember. Talk about it.
So yeah, sure. It was a great card, man.
Amazing card, man. I agree.
Dude, and then the upsets at the beginning, Soto upsetting Almeida, just dominated him on the ground. And then, dude, Johnny Campbell and Corrales, I would have thought, I said on this very podcast, I thought Corrales is one of the safer favorites just based off his rep and who he's fought and everything. But dude, Campbell, even prior to hit the finish, Campbell was still holding his own as a big underdog. You wouldn't have thought the odds would have been so wide. But as far as the bets I had a bet on Lorenz Larkin. I lost on Archuleta. I did have a bet on the fight doesn't go the distance on Johnson and Augusto. And I know it was really chalky, but I just like to say to people, there could be a wide line, but if I think that there's a little bit more value, a little bit more meat on the bone, I'm willing to play. And I just thought Johnson was going to go out there, crush him early, or Augusto was just going to take over late and submit him. But dude, it got sketchy for Johnson. Dude, he got rocked there. I was kind of nervous for him because he's always shown a great chin, but man. And then, yeah, it was crazy. Patrici.
Yeah, that fight was good too.
Paige went out there, did his thing. The thing with Paige is people just give him shit. They want to see him lose, but dude, I agree with your take. I think he and Larkin, now is the right time to book that. I think Larkin could test him. I think Paige, it's not a walkover fight for Larkin either, but Mix looked great as well. I thought the card really delivered. I do.
No, I agree completely. I was surprised Archuleta lost so clearly. I thought it'd be a competitive fight, AJ, but I did think he'd win the fight too. And the fact he lost every round really surprised me. I hate when that happens too, right? So I also had a bad play this week. I had Maurice Green, which was a terrible play, although I did have a couple dogs like Verona, so that kind of evened it out, but that was a bad bet. So I know how you feel, AJ. It's always tough when your guy loses all 5 of the rounds or all 3 of the rounds. It's just you just rip that ticket up onto the next one already, right? But the under in the Johnson Augusta, I mean, that was basically free money. Obviously, you had to lay a lot of chalk, but it was when there was a fight last year, was Walt Harris versus Overeem. And the fight doesn't go the distance. It was minus 500. I remember telling my fiance, I'm like, this is literally free money. This is literally the freest money we'll ever see. So yeah, I know. So I know what you're saying, AJ. If something's a minus 5,000 possibility, likelihood, then minus 500 does evaluate. Like, I don't really play big favorites like that anymore because I told you I've been caught too many times speeding a little bit, but I know that, they've been pretty profitable for you for the most part. And then you had Larkin, who I thought won the fight 29-28. It was close, though. I could definitely see the argument for Carvalho. Man, what a great fight, though. I enjoyed that one. Good matchmaking there. The mixed fight, man, he struggled a little bit in that first round, though, man. Like, when he got on the bottom, like, he couldn't get up, which worries me going forward against the best guys like Archuleta and like Pettis. Like, I don't know if he gets the title shot next. Even a guy like, what's his name? Stotts. That's another guy I think that can give Mix some stylistic issues. Stotts looked great against Hill. So the Pitbull Queally fight was a really good fight. Man, I mean, what a crazy sport, right? Like, the guy I thought was probably going to lose the fight. I mean, I thought actually Pitbull was probably winning. I would give him, maybe I give the second round to Queally. One judge actually had a 2-0 Queally. I talked about this with Marcel, which is nuts to me. But for me, it was probably 1-1, and Pitbull probably, had the, experience and cardio going in that run. I don't know. Who knows really what happened, but let's be honest, it was kind of like a fluky shot that cut him open and stopped the fight. And a lot of other doctors wouldn't even stop that fight too. So that's kind of a tough spot. I didn't bet on that fight because I thought 3-1, like, I actually thought that was kind of an overpayment personally, but Page also did his thing, like you said, AJ. But man, I mean, for me, it's like, he's on the same card as Larkin and they're not fighting each other. That's so stupid. I'm tired of this matchmaking. His last 5 fights of guys that aren't at his level. Let's be completely honest. Who thought Derek Anderson was going to win this fight? Like, no one. And Page just did his thing. And Derek Anderson had his hands at his waist when he got knocked out. It's not even like it was a competitive, exchange, AJ. He had his hands at his waist. And also he had some like kidney issues going in the fight, health issues. He's been suspended by the athletic commission. So Derek Anderson wasn't even healthy going. This fight should have never actually even taken place because he had serious health issues that weren't addressed to the commission, and he got caught. So he'll be suspended for I think 6 months, they said. Not a big deal. He'd probably be out that much. He broke his nose anyways, right? His face got smashed open. It was a great kick. I'm just saying, man, like, it's not like this was Carvalho and Larkin, which was a 3-round competitive fight, back and forth exchanges, clinching, ground game. You know what I mean? Like, this was just a guy that had his hands at his waist, and honestly, anyone can knock a guy out that has his hands at his waist at this level. Anyone with a high kick too. So I'm just saying, I'm not impressed with him right now. I want to see him fight someone better. I think he's a talented guy, but he's 34 years old. It's time to fight someone good, man. And again, the one time he fights Lima, he loses. I don't know, AJ. I get fired up when I talk about Page because I think he's so talented, but the matchmaking bothers me, man. I mean, like, it's just you talk about it.
Well, whenever he fights, like, love him or hate him, the thing that people love is they just want to see him fight. Like, even if he's fighting a guy that people just know that he's levels above, they're just like, oh man, I really want to see him lose. I really want to see him get his ass kicked because he just fights with such a massive ego. I mean, he honestly probably fights with the biggest ego out of any professional MMA fighter, to be honest with you. Just his hands down style. But I mean, eventually, at least I know this was another guy that wasn't on his level, but at least this was a big step up against an experienced guy relative to the past couple guys for him who've less than 5 pro fights or whatever when he's fighting overseas. But I think now I think now more than ever they would push that Larkin fight just because, like you said, they're at the same card. They both won, and they're just kind of at a point where it's just like, well, who else do they really fight? They both fought Lima. Lima's going to fight Amazov, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Yep. And so just kind of where they're ranked at, I think that there's a chance that the fight materializes. And I would consider, I'm not guaranteeing, but I would consider betting Larkin, considering the price would be reasonable. I think that he could exploit some of the holes that we have seen in Page's game, a la the low kicks. It was nice to see Larkin mixing some takedowns there. I think he kind of struggled a little bit with Carvalho's lankiness or his ranginess. But I think he could look to do that because we've seen Page get taken down, not just by guys like Lima, other guys as well. And then he just struggles to get off of his back. So there's going to be a lot of guys that could beat him. I think Larkin can too.
Possible. And Paul Daly's fighting. They announced this fight against Jason Jackson. But it's stupid because it's at 175. It's not even a welterweight fight. So it's and same with the Page fight, it was just at 175. They don't just make the weight class then. They can why doesn't Bellator be the first promotion that does this? Because or other promotions do have 175. I'm just saying the first major one, because I feel like we do need those 2 weight classes at some point, 165, 175. It just doesn't make sense that we have 10 pounds at each other weight interval and then all of a sudden it's 15, AJ. So I think at one point in time, we're still early in the sport's history. Think about it. We're still in the infancy of the sport, man. Wait till 100 years from now. Wait till, you know what I mean? They're going to have cyborgs in the ring and stuff. It's going to be crazy, and gladiators and stuff. I don't know, man, what's going to happen, but the sport's evolving, But I want to show you this, AJ, because I'm on Best Fight Odds, and I'm looking at Michael Page's historical odds. Let's just start from the beginning, okay? Look at the bottom here. His first fight. Okay, I'm going to go through his odds, guys. Minus 550 against Ricky Rainey. He knocked him out. Minus 703. These are closing odds. Minus 703 against Nashon Burrell. He knocked him out, I think. Minus 2100 against Rudy Bears. Minus 2250 against Charlie Ontiveros. Minus 1200 against Jeremy Holiday. Minus 1000 against Cyborg Santos. Minus 530 against Fernando Gonzalez. That was a close fight. It was a split decision. Gonzalez honestly could have won that fight. Minus 525 against David Rickles. Minus 300 against Paul Daly. That was a competitive fight. He did win 48-47. It was a super close fight. He probably did deserve the win. Then all of a sudden, AJ, he fights Douglas Lima, and he's a big dog, plus 175. And to be honest with you, I actually bet on him against Lima, which was such a bad bet. Looking back, but I thought there was value on this guy. And, I realized in that fight that he's not as good as like all of us thought. You know what I mean? And now I'm waiting for the time to fade him. I can't do it yet because you look at since he's fought him, minus 1200, minus 2950, minus 1300, minus 580, and then minus 395. So at least I'll give Derek Anderson. He was like in the minus 300 range, which only Paul Daly can say. But isn't that just really awful to look at? It's not a bad look, AJ, because he's been in Bellator since 2013, guys. Like, he's not new to the sport. And look at the odds every fight. It's like and the thing is, it's not like it's Cyborg Santos, right? Where there's no competition for her, so she's going to be minus 2,000 against Leslie Smith probably or something like that. You know what I mean? There's other welterweights that this guy can fight, like Lawrence Larkin, who was on the same card, who says, I want to fight welterweight, and they told me to fight middleweight or something. I think he missed weight in his last fight or something like that. I can't remember what happened, but he did fight at middleweight, but he wants to go back to welterweight. So make that fight, and I do think that Larkin could win, but, Larkin is getting up there in age a little bit too, and he's taking quite a bit of damage. So, I'd have to, look closer at the fight, AJ, but I could definitely see him winning the fight. I mean, I think Larkin's a good fighter. I think he's underrated. Got great wins, Masvidal, Magny. I mean, I wish he was still in the UFC. I mean, he signed with Bellator. He barely fights anymore. I feel like he fights once a year now, guys. I wish he was still in the UFC. He's an entertaining guy. Just quickly, AJ, just the rest of the card. That Corrales fight, man. Campbell, I was watching with my fiance, and I'm like, babe, this is why we don't bet minus 100 favorites. It's not worth it, AJ, because when this happens, it's you know what I mean? So there are people out there that do lay 9-1, and it's that's a little bit too. I know it's far past your reach, AJ, too. This Johnny Eblin guy that's minus 400, he won his fight. He looked good. That was soft matching, I guess, a little bit there in hindsight, because I thought Madrid, looked pretty good, but obviously he's just not a great fighter. And Eblin looks like a good prospect. I'll give him that. I didn't see the Perez fight. How did you watch that one? I didn't see that one. It was the first fight, I think.
Yeah, it was mildly competitive, actually. Perez was the rightful winner and everything, but I guess hindsight handicapping, he probably shouldn't have been as big of a favorite. He should have been a comfortable favorite, but not 5-1. But yeah, it was a little bit more close for comfort, I guess, if you were backing him at that line. And I'll own it too. I mean, I thought Larkin was going to pull away a bit more. He did struggle with the ranginess of Carvalho. I didn't think it would be an issue just based on how he fought Magny, similar reach and height. But he was beating him up in the clinch with those elbows, and he just wanted to clinch. But anyway, you just get some weird strategies sometimes that, this time it worked out for me. There's times when it doesn't, but you just, are happy that you won it, and you just move on from it and learn from it. Yeah,
for sure. You know what? I do want to talk about UFC 262, but I think we'll save it a little bit just because I did talk about Marcel. I know you've already had your podcast, obviously, which I want you to plug at the end, of course. So we'll talk about it a little bit, AJ, but, I'd rather talk maybe about some other fights that Marcel had, and also some news and stuff. Maybe we'll do some news quickly. Some good news, some bad news. Let's just talk about some news here. Let me close that window. Look at Daniel's comment, and Babel fan, pretty clear one they proceed. Oh, you're talking about the BFL tournament, Pettis Palmer. He has guests over, but that's okay. Yeah, MVP is a good fighter, guys. He's talented, but I mean, I'm not impressed by the matchmaking. And their matchmaker just left, Rich Chow. So I mean, maybe it'll be different now. Maybe because they have a new matchmaker now, probably. So it's Mike Hogan, I think, and Scott Coker. Maybe it won't be that different. Actually, Scott Coker's still the mastermind of Bellator, really. I mean, and you know what, AJ? He's famous for doing these kind of squash matches. He had them in Bellator showcase matches or Strikeforce, Elite XC. They always had these showcase matches. So, anyways, some news. Alan Jouban retired. I wasn't surprised because he had talked about it, but any thoughts on his retirement? He's 38 years old. I think he had a 7-4 record or something in UFC. So pretty competitive fighter. Had some good wins. We can go to look at his record quickly. Any thoughts on Allen retiring?
I think it was a good move by him. I think he picked the right fight to walk out on because it was such a fight of the night. It was a good performance by him. He fought at a high pace. I know he came through for everybody's DraftKings lineups that night, but in all seriousness, I mean, he does have an analyst gig as well. I think he's still a model, or at least he was in the past. So he's very good behind the desk. He's obviously got another, consistent revenue stream. And I mean, he doesn't need to take any more damage. Like you said, he's close to 40. So I totally understand that move by him. I think it was a good move, and you always want to go out on a high note if you can, which I think he did personally. Yeah,
just a slight correction. It's 8-5 in the UFC, not 7-4. My apologies. I mean, I think he had a good career. I mean, look at his performances. He had fighting like 4 times, so he's an action fighter. Always in stand-up wars. This fight with Bilal Muhammad was crazy. He knocked down Bilal Muhammad I think 2 or 3 times in that fight. Bilal, obviously a very durable guy, but man, he got picked apart. Had some hiccups though. I mean, the 2-minute fight, for instance, Price, where he gets KO'd quick. That's kind of where you knew, I think, where he was really tailing off. And he did knock out Ben Saunders, and he beat Gooden too. So I mean, he's still competitive, right? I thought that Gooden fight was awesome. It could have been a fight of the night. It wasn't, but what was? I can't remember what was that night. Oh, Palatnikov and Costa. I mean, I guess I think they were both good. They could have easily won. It was a great fight too. I don't know, man. I think he had a good career, and like you said, AJ, I mean, he's doing the commentary thing now, and he's still. I don't know if he's still modeling, but I know he was obviously. So he's got several revenue streams. I mean, he's obviously a very successful guy, and man, I always thought he was well spoken and stuff too. So I like him. You know what I mean? I think he's going to do really well in his future endeavors. There's some cuts to UFC. Let me pull this up. We had the news today, BJ Penn. I don't know if you saw the cut list, AJ. Did you see any of these releases? There's actually 10 fighters that have been released. I'll start with Maurice Green was released. Actually, Dan Hardy was released. He asked for his release, so we'll talk about him quickly. I don't know. Dan Hardy is he a little bit before your time, AJ? Or do you have recollection of Dan's fights or his kind of career at all, or is it a little bit before your time in MMA? I guess. Mostly before. I could recall when he fought GSP, and largely GSP just did what he did to everybody else. Yeah. But I applauded Dan, at least getting to that point, facing the dominant title holder in GSP. But yeah, that's definitely more before my time. Yeah, I remember watching that one at my house with my friend. That was one of the first ones I ever saw too, with him too. And, it was such a GSP fight, like you said. He had a few good fights. So the Chris Lytle fight was awesome. I got to meet Chris Lytle once, which was awesome. And we interviewed him. It was so cool. He was one of my favorites too, man. A little bit before your time, AJ, but he was a great fighter. But he also had a good fight with Carlos Condit, who, by the way, Alan Jouban said to Ariel that he turned down a fight with Carlos Condit. The UFC offered it to him recently on short notice, and he said no, even though he said it was his dream fight because he just wanted to walk away on a high note. So, I mean, that would have been a great fight, though, Condit versus Jouban. So Condit clearly wants to get back in there. I'm not sure who they're going to match him up with, but he said it right here. He says he turned it down. He just said basically, I'm moving right now, and it's too much distractions. I have the TV thing going on. It's just not worth it for him. This fight's great, too. I'll talk about that in a second. This Tito Ortiz thing, by the way, did you see this? He's claiming unemployment checks, apparently. He blew all his money, man. It's a really sad story, actually, guys. It's really depressing to read. Because you think, it's a UFC superstar, but yeah, man, I mean, my first time in my life, I've had to go on unemployment. I had to take care of myself, my girlfriend, my 3 kids, my mother, stepmother. He's talking about how, his job he's the mayor of Huntington Beach, and he's only making $1,400 a month or something. So he said it's just not enough money for him. And he said he made $20 million in his MMA career and lost $10 million of it to taxes. And he said he's spent all his savings. So a guy that's obviously a guy that you feel bad for because he's a legend of the sport, man. He's struggling, but I mean, it feels like he's not good with his money, AJ, because I mean, he made a lot of money. He was a wealthy guy. He just seems probably spent too much, And he's got obviously a few kids. He was married to Jenna Jameson. I think he's with Amber Nicole Miller, I think, former UFC ring card girl. I think that's his wife now. So, or his girlfriend, I should say. So, I mean, obviously he's got a family to take care of. I didn't realize he has 3 kids, by the way. So, I mean, I definitely sympathize, but man, he's made a lot of money. At the same time, I think he should have made more. You know what I mean? $20 million for his career. Don't you think? But here's the thing. They did say that, his store closed down. It's because, his the Punishment Athletics was closed down. That was another thing I think that played a role in this. But he said he's not getting those other revenue streams. He wasn't doing any like seminars and like signings and stuff like that. So during the pandemic, right? So like again, I can sympathize with that, and that's what these guys do, AJ. Like that's what that's what they should be doing. You know what I mean? You should be, making money on the side, right? Using your name, but it's a sad story. But any thoughts on this, man? Like it's really crazy, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, to be honest, completely. It's my first time hearing this. I just saw Tito Ortiz somewhat recently online, just something publicized about him. It wasn't anything with this, but this is really sad. Obviously, yeah. Some people they just can't like manage their finances. Like we see it a lot with like professional athletes. Like it's kind of like they make so much money, but they just don't know how to spend it the right way, and they sort of need that financial guidance from somebody outside. And for whatever the reason was, Ortiz just spent all of his money, and it's just really unfortunate. So yeah, wishing him all the best. I hope he bounces back. It's a good revenue stream from doing something that he wants to do, and that he's contributing to for the good of the community. And just wishing him all the best. It's sad, but just a bump in the long journey.
Yeah, I agree completely with what you said. Evander Kane, this guy is a hockey player. He lost I think he filed for bankruptcy for like $25 million. I don't know what it was, but he lost basically his whole contract. The rest of it, like the guys want to get it because like he owes so much money to gambling debts apparently. So I mean, and he's a prominent hockey player, right? Like he's one of the better wingers. It's crazy, man. But you know what? Honestly, AJ, I'm a guy who's had to learn the hard way myself. Like I've had to learn the hard way with my finances. You know what I mean? Like I used to spend recklessly. I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? I'm smart now, but I had to learn the hard way, and some people do. But I mean, I've never had to learn. I mean, he obviously was just spending way above his means. He's talking about how he has to pay off his Porsche. He's like, I still have a lease on my Porsche. It's like, come on, man. Everyone's on a lease on their car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. At the same time, AJ, I mean, the thing is, if he's making money for his job, he should be collecting unemployment. But at the same time, $1,400 doesn't seem like a lot to be the mayor at the same time. I thought it was obviously a more highly paid position. That's like a stipend almost, guys. So anyways, it's a complicated story, but when I saw that today, it's just weird, man. And Tito, he's a legend, guys. He is for all his faults and stuff. And he's probably a guy that, probably does have some brain trauma, I would imagine. I mean, come on. All those fights he's had, AJ. I would imagine a lot of these guys, Diego Sanchez, Chuck Liddell. Let's look at these cuts. Yorgan Castro is gone for the UFC. I'm not surprised, AJ. He's looked terrible. Any thoughts?
Well, it's just crazy. It's another example of I agree with the cut and everything, lost 3 in a row, but I remember when people were really high on him, coming in after the Contender Series, and then he knocked out Tafa in his debut. And then it's this classic example of, this guy's won by knockout twice in a row, therefore everybody gets excited about him. But then we see the flaws in his game. His cardio was bad. His defensive grappling was bad. He just showed all these issues and everything, but we know it by now in the UFC and even in heavyweight to some extent, you need to be well-rounded. I mean, again, I know heavyweight's a bit of an exception compared to the other weight classes, but when those knockout shots aren't coming consistently, when you just have that one shot KO power, but you're not Francis Ngannou and you're not Derek Lewis. It just kind of you're just very limited on what you could do to threaten the opposition. So because everybody has power in this weight class, so you're not separating yourself all that much unless you are Francis or Derek. But yeah, I agree with it. And I'm curious to hear the other cuts that were made.
Yeah, we're talking about the 1 second. I just want to get Daniel's comment. He said the Tito thing sounds suspicious. Maybe there's some kind of addiction issue there with pills or something, or brain trauma. I think the latter, but I don't know. Some of the other cuts, some of them were overall already reported, but there are some new ones. And also, I said briefly, Maurice Green was also released. AJ, he announced that himself on his Instagram, so he was cut. What a bad bet by me. That's the worst one I made all year. He just got completely ragdolled for 3 rounds. It was terrible. I knew the bet was gone in the first round, AJ. So that was a tough one, guys. That was the worst one play I've made all year, probably. Usually, AJ, when I do lose, they're close fights. Like Ludwig Klein, I had him in a 2-team parlay with Rodriguez. We lost on that. It was a close fight. We'll talk about that. We don't have to talk about that fight. I mean, who do you think won that? I guess I thought he won, but it was pretty close.
To be honest with you, I was having dinner, so I wasn't.
Yeah,
totally
no worries. It wasn't.
15 minutes.
It was super close, AJ. Anyways, but yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to be too hard on myself. We moved on to the next week already, right? So we got the card coming up Saturday, and we're going to win. We got Luke Sanders. He had a great fight. He got cut. I liked his fight, man, with Caleres, but obviously he getting a little bit older. Long in the tooth. I think he's 36 now, so getting up there in age. But he did have I thought a good fight, but he gave up in the second round, and I think when he gave up his back and basically he was waiting for the ref to stop the fight. I think everyone was, and Chris Cannonier didn't stop the fight, right? Remember that, AJ? In the second round. So Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have kept him around for another fight, but if that was the end of his deal, I can understand why they cut him. Anthony Burchak, I don't think was a UFC caliber fighter, really. Same with Elon Cruz. KB Buller definitely wasn't. This guy was probably one of the worst. I don't want to. I hate saying it because he's a Canadian, but man, he had a bad career in the UFC. Both his fights were very lackluster, bad performances. So not very impressed with that guy in the UFC. Just kind of blew his opportunity, man. His coaches were telling him, like, "Come on, man, you got to pick it up." He just wasn't doing it. AJ, it was a lackluster performance in both his fights. Jordan Griffin, I thought, had a very competitive fight that I think a lot of us thought he won against Luis Saldana. It ends up costing him his job. That really sucks. Bartosz Verbinski got submitted his last fight. Not surprised he got cut. But it also makes me concerned that maybe they were going to cut Gerald Meerschaert had he been the loser of the fight. Maybe they would have cut him, which I thought he had a better standing in the UFC, but maybe they just didn't like Verbinski. And then you had Oscar Pichota, Justine Kish. So any thoughts on these cuts, man?
Yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised. I saw some people a little concerned or perplexed about the Griffin one because you could definitely make a good argument that he beat Saldana. But like, I guess I could understand it from a forward-thinking perspective in that the UFC wants to, I guess, keep fighters on their roster that they see some longevity with. And like with Griffin, like he's won a couple fights, but like, has he looked particularly great in any four of them? I mean, honestly, like even against TJ Brown, for instance, he was like losing that fight up until the guillotine. And so it's just like they're looking at it from like a longevity perspective. It's the same reason why they're cutting these guys and we got to even consider about a guy like even Ferguson or Souza this weekend. If they maybe lose, they're on big, they're getting big paydays. Like the UFC wants to keep fighters that like, well, ideally they don't have to pay a ton, but if they are paying a ton, it's like for good reason, like Conor McGregor, like people will totally tune in for him. Whereas some of these guys that are a little bit over the hill, they're more willing to let him go. I guess the cut that I'm most surprised by, in addition to the Griffin, is probably Justine Kish.
Yeah,
that was a little surprising. Like I know that she had a bit of a layoff, but like she's been relatively competitive in most of her fights, except for like the Herrig fight. Even against Cortez last time out, she went to a split decision. But I guess like with her in the case of Griffin, like they just seem to be giving them the prospects. Like the fight prior, she got Sabina Mazo. The fight prior, Griffin got TJ Brown. So I guess if they're giving these fighters these roles for like, hey, test the prospects, see if they're UFC level, and then that's it. You know, then I could I guess understand it if in a sense I wouldn't do it personally if I was running the promotion, but I could at least see from a different perspective why they maybe would do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that Kish, she had lost 4 or 5, but they were competitive fights. Kind of a tough cut because I thought she was, pretty competitive in that fight with Cortez. And someone who did bet on Cortez in that fight was sweating it, right? So, it was a close fight. But I guess they just looked at it as a gatekeeper. Let's look at some of the fights that Marcel, on his page. He's not here today, unfortunately, guys. He's busy, but let's look at some new fighting outs on JJ. Of course, don't give a pick or anything like that, but we'll just talk quickly about the style matchups and stuff. 2 grapplers, right? This is going to be a good one, guys. Sergey Spivak against Alexei Oleinik, June 19th. Fight doesn't go the distance. I don't think that these 2 guys don't have the greatest cardio. Spivak probably doesn't have better cardio, obviously. But, I mean, I don't know. Spivak's obviously a younger guy. Oleinik has the submission prowess, but he's getting up. He's like one of the oldest guys now in the UFC. He's 40. He's going to be just shy of 44. He's 43. He's turning 44 the week after his fight. Any thoughts on this one, man?
They're giving Oleinik another up-and-comer, and it's Spivak here who's been on a roll. Spivak, I will say, has had like one of the better like resurgences in the UFC, like quietly. I mean, I know that we got Oliveira this weekend, but like quiet, like a guy that literally came into his debut, got knocked out in like I believe under a minute by Harris, and people were like wondering like, what is this guy even UFC level? But then he proceeds to rattle off some wins. I know he lost to Tybura in there, but Tybura is definitely a top 15-ish heavyweight, so it's not a bad loss at all. And I think it's another prospect versus veteran type of matchup, and like you said, the age factor is very important. I know you have been more wise to it for a longer period of time, but I just had the stats in front of me recently to say like how often do we see these guys in their 40s and late 30s win fights consistently in the UFC? It's been like Romero's in there and Trinaldo, but like honestly beyond them, like there just hasn't been many. And I know that Oleinik's rattled off some wins, but I'm pretty that's a wise stat. I think that the younger fighter, when it's a wide gap, assuming it's like not an atrocious style matchup for them, they more often than not win these fights. And I think Spivak is also a grappler too, like you said. So in theory, Oleinik isn't going to have as big of advantage as he typically does.
I agree completely. Yeah, he's up. I think he's the oldest fighter besides Renault. Renault is, I think, he's either 43. Actually, I remember doing the article on this. She's a week older than him, or I put a tweet out about it because I remember just I was curious myself. She's a week older than him, so she's fighting Miesha Tate in her retirement fight. I have to imagine if Oleinik gets finished, he'll be cut. Don't know if he retires. I think he's a guy that could go to Ryzen or something, fight in Japan, fight some easy competition, fight some fun fights. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking would be good for him, AJ. I know he lives in Florida right now with his family. Maybe, I don't know what else is down there. I hope he doesn't go to bare knuckle. That'd be terrible to see. Hope he doesn't do that. But I wouldn't mind seeing him just do some grappling. I think this could be the end of the line though, guys, if he does get stopped. In my mind right now, I obviously have to go and do tape study when this fight comes around, but in my mind right now, AJ, just see Spivak being on top and just pounding him out. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm imagining right now in my head. So looks like a tough matchup. And this one, look at this one. Looks like they're punishing Jeremy Stephens, man, for screwing up that Dakar close fight by matching up with this guy, Mateusz Gamrot, who I think is an absolute beast and who I think is a guy that's going to be a serious contender at 155 for a long time to come, man. Give me your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, I'll be honest here. I underrated Gamrot. Is more not that he's a bad fighter or anything, but just as a finishing threat. And he just went out there and just knocked out Holtzman last time out. So the guy certainly got some power. He trains an American Top Team as well, and he's one of these guys that kind of a looser comparison, like Yuri Prochazka. Before coming to the UFC, he accrued all this experience, which is really respectful to do. But yeah, it seems like maybe they're potentially punishing Stephens. It's really tough to read in between the lines, but we definitely have another prospect versus veteran type of matchup. Stephens has always been a guy that's just very reliant on doing damage with that right hand. He'll just rely on it a little bit too much. He's a little too confident in that power, in my opinion. He's not a great round winner. So, yeah, I like you. I got to do tape, but I think my biggest takeaway here is prospect versus veteran. Perhaps they're punishing Stephens for the antics that he did at weigh-ins from a few cards ago against Close, where he shoved him or whatever.
Yeah, and I obviously just did the tape study with Gamrot with the Holtzman fight, right? So I've really fresh in my mind. I mean, I think we all think that he's probably going to win this fight, guys. So I'd imagine he'd be a 2-1 favorite, maybe. Would that be kind of be the line, or maybe 3-1? I don't think it'd be any higher than that. I mean, Stephens obviously does have the power. He's obviously a veteran, so we did see Gamrot lose to Kutaladze, but I thought he won that fight too. I think he's really good. All right, so we got this fight. Ben Rothwell's had a few different opponent changes, but he's going to end up fighting this guy, Chris Barnett. He used to be called Huggy Bear, and now he's got a different nickname, Beast Boy. But he used to be called Huggy Bear. Yeah, he's coming in at short notice, AJ. I don't know if you know much about this guy. Do you know anything about him? I am familiar with this guy. He has had a lot of fights in Japan and stuff. We'll go through his tap ball too quickly. 21-6 record, 34 years old. I mean, he's fought, quite a few fights. He said this is grappling, but I was looking at this Romero one. It's grappling. He's had a lot of knockout losses, man. Alex Nicholson, a former UFC fighter, this guy knocked him out twice. A lot of knockout losses, but he does have some, I wouldn't say great wins by any means, but decent wins. Walt Harris he beat in 2011. So this guy's a veteran of the sport, man. I was looking through his record. He's taken a long road to get here. He's been fighting since 2009. He does have some, not great wins, but, notable wins like Travis View, the guy with the most fights in MMA history. You know this guy, AJ, Travis View? He's a legend of the sport. Or sorry, Travis View. It's a different guy, but he has 100 fights. But the other guy, Travis Fulton, has 300 fights. But yeah, Travis View has 100 fights. That's crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ben Rothwell probably knocks this dude out, man. I mean, I hope it's a good line because he was -110 against Philippe Lins, and I loved him there. I bet on him, and the fight got canceled. Any thoughts on this one, just from what you barely know about this guy?
Well, yeah, I don't know him. I haven't watched footage of him, but I think the reason why he's getting the call is the UFC is just sort of giving these guys these chances that are willing to step in on short notice. We have an example of that on Saturday with Soriano stepping in. I forgot who Giagos was originally supposed to fight, but they're giving these guys these chances that are willing to step in, that have definitely paid their dues, and some on the regional scene. Rothwell, we keep getting Rothwell versus Lynn scheduled. It's starting to turn into Ferguson versus Khabib. I'm kidding. It's to a far lesser extent.
I like this fight more, actually. This fight's going to be more fun, I think, because I think Lynn's, in my mind, he was just going to back up the whole fight. Rothwell was going to be going after him, being more aggressive, landing harder strikes, winning a decision, or maybe finishing him. I really liked him in that spot. Spot's not happening now. But yeah, I mean, I've seen Chris Barnett fight quite a few times, and he does have power and everything, but yeah, I think he probably gets finished.
This isn't the guy that goes by Crazy Horse, is it?
No. That's Charles Crazy Horse Bennett. That's another guy who fought in Japan, but for Pride. Yeah, he's a different guy, but obviously a very similar name. Islam Makhachev against Thiago Moises. A lot of people don't like the matchmaking here. Islam Makhachev went on his Instagram today and said that he asked for RDA, Felder, or Hooker, and they all said no to him. So the UFC said you can either fight Rafael Fiziev, or Thiago Moises, and they chose Thiago Moises. I think Thiago Moises is a very good young fighter. This is probably going to be a tough fight, but he's also a good grappler. So it's an interesting matchup. I obviously need to look at this one a little bit more, AJ, but any initial thoughts on this grappling, probably heavy matchup?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Makhachev versus Davi Ramos, another elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and I know Makhachev won that fight fairly comfortably, but Moises is he's always been a guy I've been a bit higher on in the public. I don't think he's going to be like a future champ at this weight class, but he's very solid and well-rounded. He's a decent wrestler. He's an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I think he's a solid technical striker, not the most dangerous guy, but he's got some power in his hands. And he's one of these guys I think needs to really fight confident to be at his best. Like when he's the aggressor, like Alexander Hernandez, when he's pushing him on his back foot, he looks like he's like the Terminator in there. But like kind of like we saw round one against Michael Johnson, when you put him on his back foot, that's when he's the most vulnerable. So he's more of an optics guy, I'd say. But as far as the matchup goes, like Islam has a tough time finding fights, as I'm sure does Moises. I mean, none of these veterans in the division, I can understand it. There's just not a lot for them to gain to face these young up and comers that potentially are more hungrier. They just don't have as many names on their resume, big names that is. So I like both guys. I'm very high on both of them, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. They're both excellent grapplers. So I hope it hits the ground.
Yeah, it'd be nice too, but it could stay standing too for sure. And Moises has looked good in the feet, man. He's looked good in his last couple of fights, guys. And he's young. He's only 26, so he's really young. He's getting better quickly. He might lose this fight, but I think he still has a pretty high ceiling, to be honest with you, AJ. So even if he loses this fight, I don't think his stock would go down too much. Because I think a lot of people, I would expect Makhachev to be the favorite here. Again, he'll be the favorite in most fights. This fight is pretty great. Paulo Costa versus Jared Cannonier, great fight. Main event, August 21st, 5-round fight. AJ, any thoughts on this one, man?
Dude, I love it. What's the fight doesn't go the distance like going to be? That's what I'm wondering. I mean, these guys, both of them, man. I think it's honestly, this is just when I saw this yesterday, and then I Darren Till versus Derek Brunson sneaked past my gaze.
Yep.
Yeah, like these two middleweight bookings are awesome. Especially if no, I disagree there. Actually, I think, obviously Vettori's fighting Adesanya, then I think the next guy up would be Whitaker. But I guess in theory, if Costa beats Cannonier, then you can maybe do Costa Whitaker. But Cannonier, if he wins, maybe you do Cannonier versus the winner of Till Brunson. So what I'm trying to say is, I think with this matchup, you have a few different avenues for that next step. But both power punchers, both aggressive, fearless fighters. I wonder how Costa's going to respond after that Adesanya fight, because that was a bit uncharacteristic of him to just. I had a bet on Adesanya there, and I kind of expected to sweat the first few minutes with Costa's pressure forward style, but he just literally stood at range with them. And I don't know if it was the layoff or just the nervousness, or he just felt the threat of Adesanya in there, but it was just kind of weird. And I know Cannonier's coming off a loss too, but I thought he performed admirably, there, and he broke his arm. So, we'll see. Cannonier just lost to Whitaker, as did Costa, lost to Adesanya, the champ. So they're definitely, despite coming out losses, they're at the elite of the division for sure.
Yeah, and Costa said he was drunk the night before. He said he was still drunk in the fight. That was his excuse. So I don't know, but he looked terrible in that fight. He looked like he was drunk. Maybe he was. He looked terrible. Cannonier, man, I had Whitaker in that fight, and that was a sweat in that third round because you hurt him badly. Nearly won the fight, but he ends up losing on the scorecard. Still very, had that fight been 5 rounds, which I wish it had been, because that should have been a 5-round fight. I'm glad this one is. Even though I don't think this one needs the 5 rounds, but I'm still glad it's a main event. It's a great fight. This is a much smaller scale fight. It's Pat Sabatini versus Jamal Emmers. And I just have to go back and see how good Emmers' takedown defense is, really, because I think Sabatini, as he showed his last fight, very good takedowns and ground control. But he faded bad in that third round, lost the third round. It was his UFC debut. So he said he had some nerves and stuff, but he's a good grappler. Obviously, Emmers though is looked pretty good in the UFC. I think Any thoughts on this one?
I think this is a tougher matchup for Sabatini, to be honest with you. I think Emmers is a better athlete, and he's also a good wrestler. I know Sabatini's the higher profile submission grappler on paper, but Emmers is like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, pretty solid on the ground. But I think it's, two prospects. Emmers just can't, like, he hasn't stayed that active. Like, he had that weird Skelly fight where, like, he just couldn't make it backstage. And I know that frustrated a lot of people in their DFS lineups,
man.
Hopefully he can make the walk this time. Sabatini, I think he is talented, but I think his ceiling is also capped. Like, I think Sabatini will kind of struggle when he faces a guy that could stuff his takedowns. I'm not sold on his striking. His striking is not bad, certainly, but I think there's plenty of guys in the division that I'd favor him in a striking. And then you pointed out he basically took round 3 off against Connolly. I don't know if that was like a UFC jitters thing. I mean, I think this is a guy that's been 5 rounds in the regional, so perhaps it is. But I don't know. I was impressed with those first 2 rounds, but then it was just kind of perplexing to see him just kind of coast. And I never really like to see that,
I hated seeing it too, man. I was really frustrated. I thought it was a little frustrating to watch him there because obviously he was winning the fight. He looked good. We'll see. Mario Batista, Guido Canetti, don't have to talk about this one too much. I mean, 2 guys that, are coming off, I think, knockout losses. I would imagine Batista would be a favorite in this fight. Any thoughts on this quickly?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Batista, despite the loss, he's a talented prospect. I think he gets right. Even without tape study, I know that Batista most likely is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. I agree with you. Yeah. He'll be a big favorite. I'd imagine he'd be like minus 300, minus 400. Not too crazy because he did get knocked by Trevin Jones, who I had as a plus 200 dog. That was one of my better calls of the year. Sorry about this one. Johnny Walker and Thiago Santos. What a fight, man. 2 light heavyweight behemoths. I don't know if it's a main event. I guess it's not. 3-round fight. Doesn't need 5 rounds anyways. Any thoughts on this fight between these 2 big bombers at 205?
Yeah, somebody on Twitter told me, like, when I tweeted about this fight, they're like, is there enough testosterone in the arena for these 2 guys? I'm like, we might need a Greek stadium or something. But, dude, honestly, I think this fight is awesome. I hope that they don't, like, stare at each other because maybe they just respect each other's power. Yeah. But, like, honestly, it has the potential to just be like, when I think of this fight, I almost think of do you remember Santos versus Jimmy Manuwa?
Yeah, I was at that fight in Toronto. I was at that fight.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, it was nuts. If it's even like a fraction of that, I will be happy. I mean, I think that they'll both come out on fire. I mean, they both have had some recent skids, but at least Santos, it's been to guys that are at the top of the division, no doubt. But
I mean, he's got the win over Blachowicz too. I mean, he knocked him out a couple years ago. Blachowicz, I watched that fight so closely, right? Because I remember I bet on Blachowicz against Adesanya. So I watched that fight and that finished. And I remember watching it again and again. I'm like, Adesanya, Blachowicz made a mistake. He just rushed in, got caught, but just shows the power of Santos, which we saw against Anthony Smith. We've seen it many times, but Johnny Walker is one of my favorites too. When I was in Brazil 2 years ago, it's actually been 2 years now, which is crazy. I saw my friend Aaron Bronster was tweeting about it. We had been sent there by, I don't know if I told you about this, AJ. 2 years ago, Poker Stars reached out and they sent us there. A bunch of other people, journalists from around the world, like maybe like 10 of us total. But it was awesome, like all fully paid for by them. First round, first class, dinner on that. It was great. It was great. But we went out for dinner with Johnny Walker and his manager, Lucas, who manages a lot of other fighters in the UFC. And I remember having like lobster with him. We were talking, and like he was awesome. Man. I got like a picture with him and shit. It was awesome, man. He was a really super cool guy. He's actually improved his English a lot too. But he was awesome, man. I got to like have dinner with this guy in Brazil. How cool! That's a pretty cool story, right? Like it was fun, man. Poker Stars, man. They treated us so well. I don't know why, AJ. They sent me an email saying. It was PR ladies. This was like 2 years ago. I think I told this story before, but I get this email saying, "Hey, would you be interested in going to Brazil to cover UFC 237 Andrade and Nama Yunus?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, like, this is real. Like, you know what I mean? And she's like, "Okay, call me." I call her, and then she starts telling me, "Oh, I know Aaron Bronstetter and James Lynch and all these guys." So I'm like, "Okay, good." James didn't come, but Aaron was there. So me and Aaron went on the plane together, and like, it was awesome, man. And yeah, I got to meet a lot of people during that trip, but Johnny was cool, dude. Like, but it's tough because I have to like put that aside when I watch his fights because I want to win my bet or in my DFS, make sure my DFS lineup has the right guy in it because this fight's going to be 100 points for one guy and 0 for the other probably because I think someone gets KO'd probably in the first round of this fight, guys. I would hope because I don't want to see Santos fight patiently anymore because that fight with Rakic was very frustrating in my opinion. But Walker, I think, brings the fight to everyone. Even if he he's going to have, I think, John Kavanagh as his coach for this fight, I think, because he's been training in Ireland. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the new coaching staff will, like, maybe he'll wrestle or something in this fight. I could see him trying to maybe he tries to wrestle AJ. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe instead of striking with Santos, but I feel like he'll get into his old habits. So let's go to this next one. Chaos Williams, who I'm high on, Matt Semelsberger, who I really like. I remember doing the tape study for his fight with Jason Witt, and I went deep in his career, and I really like this kid, man. And man, this is a good fight. Both guys are powerful, but man, I like the Semelsberger kid a lot. Any thoughts?
Yeah, both guys that have shown power in their hands. Williams went on that like quick KO streak there against Morono, and then he knocked out Al Hassan. And then he fought a wild man in Pereira. But anyway, yeah, this is a good booking. It's going to be one of those fights that might be on the prelims, but even though it's on the prelims, it's going to be one of those like hidden gems that like hardcores like me and you and others will really appreciate. But should be fun. Semelsberger, like, yeah, he's really long for the division. I think he's like over 6 foot. Maybe he's got a long reach as well. But yeah, I think Semi the Jedi and Chaos. So yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yep, me too. Luis Saldana, Austin Lingo. Yeah, I mean, they're both, on the periphery of this division probably. I don't know. Saldana wasn't too impressed in the last fight. He's a little bit like he's 30 years old, so he's not like super young anymore. He has a lot of fights too. I don't know, man. I wasn't too impressed with the Griffin fight. He did have that nice knock on a Contender Series. I don't know what to think about this guy, to be honest with you. And Lingo, I think, has looked pretty good in the UFC. He's 1-1. I don't know, man. Any thoughts on this one? Both guys kind of like, on the border of the UFC caliber, probably.
Yeah, they're both very flawed. I think, especially as defensive wrestlers and grapplers, I don't know who's going to get the upper hand there, but yeah, like Lingo, one thing that sticks out to me in particular, his footwork is just so bad. I mean, he just like is just slow, and he follows the opposition instead of cutting them off. I think Saldana moves a bit better. I actually do like Saldana striking. It's just if he can't stop a takedown and can't separate from the clinch, there's going to be a lot of guys that can beat him. Besides, well, I know Jordan Griffin officially lost, but besides a guy like Jordan Griffin. So, yeah, could be interesting. Maybe it takes place in the feet. I'm not particularly high on either guy, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Let's talk about a few different ones. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. Jin Frey, Stella Nunes. I don't know her. Yeah, it's her UFC debut. I don't really know this girl. I have to watch her fights. I'm guessing was she from Invicta or Rising or something? I got to watch her fights. I've got to be honest. I'm not too. Are you familiar with this girl?
No.
Yeah, that's okay. Me either. Alexander Pantoja, Brandon Morgan, great flyweight fight. I'd imagine, the winner could be up there for a title shot. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, somebody called this on Twitter. I want to give credit where credit is due. I think John Kelly did. He said like a few months ago, he's like, it would be awesome if Royval and Pantoja fought. But yeah, I am a little lower on Royval than the public. I think that a lot of people like him because he's like exciting and flashy and that sort of thing, but he's just very, very flawed defensively. His chin is high, his hands are low. Like he could push a crazy pace and he's definitely threatening, but like he's not good technically. I think that honestly Pantoja could school him here. I think that Pantoja is actually an established elite fighter in this weight class, and I don't think Royval is, at least right now. He's very young and he could get better. And I would like to see him get better. I think he has potential, but I think this might be a little too soon for Royval. They have to give him a guy like Pantoja because of what he's done. But I honestly think that, like we just saw in the Moreno fight, his takedown defense is just so bad, and his striking defense is not good either. I think he has a few holes to patch up. He could get there. He trains at a good camp, but I think it's a good booking for flyweight for sure.
Good fight. Penny Kansas, Alexis Davis. Don't want to talk about this one too much. I'm going to fade Alexis Davis any chance I get. I mean, I know she did look pretty good against Mazzo. I just think Mazzo is just not really UFC caliber. Maybe, I don't know. Like Penny Kansas is much tougher out. I think she's looked a lot better lately. Any quick thoughts on this one? I don't really want to spend much time on this fight. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, striker versus grappler. Davis could definitely pull a rabbit out of the hat. Some people saw last time out.
Yep.
yeah. Some people rise to that. I don't know. I don't have a ton of interest here. Another prospect versus veteran. That seems to be the theme of the fights here.
Well, this fight got canceled. This guy, I don't know if he tested positive or something. I'm kidding. No, he the issues. But look at this. Look at the picture Marcel picked too, eh? But the fight got canceled. So he was supposed to be in PFL, and this is weird because he's fought at like welterweight and also like middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. It's really weird. This guy, very strange career. But he's fought at welterweight, lost to the Luke Jumo, who's in the UFC, who's not very good at welterweight. So that's really weird. Jocelyn Edwards there, fan. Wow, okay. I like Edwards, but I mean, fair, and it's just I can't believe they're giving her another fight, honestly, because she missed weight. She came in like 11 pounds overweight or something, 146 her last fight, and this is at 135. Like you know what I mean? Like Edwards is a much better fighter in my opinion. Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch the weigh-ins on this one. I know we're saying this one in advance.
That got canceled too, man. That one got canceled at the last second, man. That sucked. Fight day. Yeah, how about this one?
Witness.
Marcelo Rowe, Kevin Kroom, two pretty exciting guys. I guess Kroom, you know what, man? I thought he could win that fight with Caceres, but his cardio really failed him in that fight, which I was surprised by. And Rojo, we know has good cardio and looked, I thought, really good against Charles Jourdain, like really competitive. Any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, it should be exciting. I don't know if either guy has like a long tenure in the UFC. I think they maybe don't, unless they make significant improvements, which is always possible. But like we saw in the Caceres fight, I think a lot of people were pretty hyped on Kroom because he got that flashy finish in his debut and he trains with Kraus. But he's not like, he's just so slow and hittable and everything. Like I just honestly, maybe Rojo doesn't beat him, but there's a lot of guys that I think could beat Kroom beyond just Caceres. So, but to your point, they both should bring it. That fight that Rojo had with Jourdain was high action. It of course takes two to tango, but I do think that Kroom would be a willing dance partner for that fight of the night type of brawl.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go through a couple other ones here. This fight got rebooked to Amanda Rivas, Angela Hill, but Amanda Rivas said today, she's my bad. She said today that she still has COVID symptoms, and it's her second time getting COVID, which is she said is rare, obviously, which is rare, which she had said is rare, which I'm surprised by. I don't know how she got it. Her father has it too, but yeah, apparently she does have the symptoms and everything, so it's not good. In this fight, I would imagine maybe they'll find a different opponent. I don't know. I mean, it sucks, but she's still in Vegas. She's still in quarantine because she's still sick. So, and she'll probably stay in Vegas, I'd imagine, until this fight would happen. I would just guess she would stay there wherever the UFC keeps their fighters. This fight didn't happen. Yeah, and then that's it. I mean, we talked about those ones. So, yeah, and then, the last thing we'll talk about, AJ, just let's do quickly UFC 262. The thing is, like, obviously me and Marcel did the preview, so I don't want to go through every fight. And I'll give my bets out tomorrow on the Elite Fantasy, Elite Betting Podcast. I'll give those out tomorrow. But we'll talk. I mean, I asked you last week, but I want to ask you again this week. Can you give me a dog of the week? I should pull up this fight out actually. Dog of the week, AJ.
I will go with. She's not a big underdog. Well, I'll give two. So Viviane Araujo and Andrea Lee. I think they're both very live. I think both fights are likely to go the distance. And I actually think that the underdogs in both matchups have more finishing upside of the two. They both have their own respective issues. Like Andrea Lee has not exactly put it together consistently in the UFC, but I think she has the tools to win here. I think she has a higher pace, a higher volume. I think Antonina is more technical on the feet, but Andrea can make up for it with her come forward style. And I also think that Andrea is the better wrestler offensively, and I think she's a better scrambler. So she could win rounds by making it competitive on the feet, getting some top control. And why I think Viviane should be favored as well is I think she hits a bit harder. I think that she's a better athlete, and I think that similar to Andrea, if there are takedowns to be landed here, takedown upside for one fighter, it would be Viviane. She's just a more willing grappler, and I think she's a little, I know Caitlin's strong as well. Caitlin former 135er, Viviane former 115 actually, but she's like deceivingly strong and athletic. And I know you're high on that Sanford MMA camp. She trains there, but those are two fighters that I think could pull off the upset. I don't like them from a betting perspective because I don't think there's as much value on them for me to warrant a bet. But they are two that I think could be live to pull off the upset. You
said Arrows was at Sanford?
Yeah. Yeah. With those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think I feel the same way about you with that fight. To be honest with you, like I had to watch her fights I'd seen her fight in Brazil when I was there, and that card I was talking about earlier. I was there for that card. She knocked out Talita Bernardo in the third round. Man, I think she hits harder. I think she's just the better striker, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people are looking at that Jessica Ai fight thinking, she lost that fight, but I came 5 pounds overweight for that fight. Also, Chukagian also lost to Ai too, and everyone forgets about that. So I feel like Chookagian is beatable, man. We saw her get knocked out by Andrade with a body shot. You know, this girl Viviane is pretty nasty with her kicks and everything too. AJ, I could see her throwing a body kick or something. Man, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be a play or not for me. Like, I don't know, but I would favor her. And then the other fight you talked about, Andrea Lee, I think she has a good chance to win the fight against Antonina too. I don't know. I think I'm probably going to end up picking Antonina. I don't know yet, AJ, but I think so. But I'm pretty sure I will, officially in the staff pool. But yeah, I mean, Andrea Lee's definitely a worthy underdog in that fight. I think she has a chance. And just quickly, your main event prediction, we'll get out of here. Charles Oliveira, if you can talk about it at all. If you can't, we'll talk about a different fight instead. Are you allowed to talk about that one or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, any thoughts on the main event, Oliveira and Chandler?
Yeah, we're actually on two different wavelengths here. I read your article for MMAOB. I think it's very close. Like, I don't want people to think, like, just because I'm picking Chandler, I can't see Oliveira winning. I think Oliveira could win in quite a few ways, actually, but I think Oliveira is a more technical striker. I think he has more varied tools on the feet. Chandler is live to land a big shot like he always is, and Oliveira doesn't have good head movement. But I actually do think that Oliveira, if it takes place standing, he could win the aggregate of the striking exchanges, assuming he doesn't get hurt badly. But why I like Chandler a bit more is because he's the better wrestler, the better athlete. Therefore, on paper, he should be able to control where the fight goes. And I think he's shown me at least enough composure in top position to sort of avoid any sweeps from Oliveira from early on, any sort of submission attempts. I think Oliveira will still be a threat on the ground, but like, I think as the rounds kind of wear on, as Chandler starts to land more ground and pound, he can maybe finish Oliveira similar to Felder. And I just like that Chandler's been 5 rounds more often. I don't think Chandler has elite cardio, but I think I trust it more than Oliveira's. Oliveira has slowed down in many fights against Ricardo Lamas, against Kevin Lee. I know he went 3 with Tony, but largely he just took Tony down and held him in top position. That didn't really expend a ton of energy. So that's why I favor Chandler. I think he's a better wrestler. I think he should be able to control where the fight goes. I like that he's been more experienced going 5 rounds. But again, Oliveira is a guy that is dangerous standing. He's dangerous on the ground. We talked about guys making career resurgences earlier. This is a guy that has made a very clear career resurgence going on the monumental win streak that he's been on. So I love the fact that they booked this fight. It's 2 fresh contenders, and they're just on the highest of momentum here. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And if I get the prediction wrong, that's okay. It's more important to me that we actually get to see this fight go down.
Yeah, it's a great fight. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an easy fight to pick at all, man. And just, you have to pick a winner. You have to pick a method. Just at the end of the day, like, I definitely see Chandler finishing him too. It's not like he doesn't have a chance. For DraftKings, I'll be playing both guys, AJ. I think they can both get finishes. I came in first place last week, AJ. I tied with 100 other people though, so it's like wasn't too great of a prize, but does give me some more bankroll to go after this week with the $25 games. Probably put in some teams. I don't know. You put in like when you said 150 teams. What game were you playing? Same one or? I
usually do the $1 is my favorite one.
Yeah. How is that one? I want to join it, but I know it's like 50,000 people. The one I went was 30,000 people, which is still great, right? But 50 is even a lot more. How has it been for you, profitability wise? I guess
it's been a minus ROI on that, but where I've been getting my ROI for DraftKings has been cash games. I actually put more of my bankroll in the double ups and whatnot. I just spend more time on that because I feel like my edge is bigger there. And when I hit tournaments, obviously I want to hit with like a contrarian lineup because, like you said, there's just been so many ties. Yeah. So I'm a bit more willing to be contrarian, leave more money on the table, target some of these bigger underdogs than most. But I just like my cash game strategy. That's what I focus on more. I probably go 60% in cash games and then 40% of my bankroll is in GPPs for DraftKings. So. But yeah, I love it, man. And I was happy to see you won. That's awesome. Even though you got to split it, I still think that's really cool, man.
Thanks.
So
yeah. I want to play again this week and try to win the whole thing, but we'll see. It's tough to win. AJ, we're at the end of the show, man. I appreciate you coming on, joining me. Guys in the chat, appreciate you guys being here as well. Hope everyone does well in their bets and everything this weekend. I'll be back on Monday with Marcel at 4 p.m. Eastern. AJ, really quickly plug your stuff, man, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, sure thing. AJ Schullo on Twitter. You could tail my bets for the event. I have a couple posted on dailyfanmma.com. Subscription is warranted in the betting hub. All my bets are third-party tracked and verified at betmma.tips /AnthonyS364. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody in the comments. Best of luck.
Yep. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll be back Monday with Marcel. We'll talk about UFC 262, 4 p.m. Eastern Monday.